Hello, and welcome to the IPMA HR presentation of Walk a Mile in Your Candidate's Shoes, 6 Tips for Improving the Candidate Experience. On behalf of IPMA HR, thank you for your participation in today's presentation, and we all understand this is a busy time for you all, so thank you. A few housekeeping items. We will have all participants on mute. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to submit questions throughout the presentation. We will address the questions at the end. There will also be some polling questions throughout the presentation to participate in. This presentation will be recorded and will be available along with the slides on the IPMA HR website under the webinar library within 2 business days. This is a reminder for those of you that are IPMA CP SCP certified. Today's webinar provides you with 1 point towards recertification. If you're not currently certified, you can visit IPMA HR's website and learn more information under Get Certified. We appreciate your feedback as well. A link to the survey will be provided in the chat box at the end of the presentation, as well as several other resources. Today, we want to thank NEOGOV for sponsoring this webinar. Today, we're joined by Alex Uberheide, Account Executive at NEOGOV. In a tight job market where the public sector is competing with the private sector for candidates, it's more important than ever to ensure a pleasant experience for all job candidates. Today, Alex will guide you through ways to identify gaps in the candidate journey and steps to take that can immediately close those gaps. You will walk away today with ideas on how to map your organization's candidate journey, boost the candidate experience, and use technology to take the experience to the next level. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for the intro, and thank you all for joining today. Today's webinar is aptly titled, and we'll be discussing the recruitment process from 2 sides of the same coin, your candidate's experience during the hiring process, as well as your own as HR professionals. Along the way, we're going to discuss best practices, do some polling, as Jacqueline mentioned, to get your feedback. Now, as for those questions that you might have during today's demo webinar here, feel free to jot them down in the text box, send them over to me. I'll reserve about 10-15 minutes at the end to get through as many questions as possible, but you're also going to have my contact info on the last slide, so you guys can always send me anything after the fact, and I will respond promptly. For the first time in my professional life, I can confidently say I'm going to have plenty of spare time over the next 6 weeks or so. Okay, so today's goal, we're going to expand the employer view of the candidate experience. We're going to uncover some problems and opportunities that could be addressed to land your better hires. All right, so quick agenda for today, along with a quick little vanity mirror photo shot of the best looking version of who you're talking to today. I'm going to do a quick plug for NEOGOV. It's short, I promise. This will not be a sales pitch. Then we're going to hop right into the goods. We'll examine the job seeker journey. We'll identify some key junctures and define the ideal experience. And then we're going to determine how existing processes or tools need to change just to optimize that experience. Okay. Now, beyond stating the obvious that this current medical crisis, the event that we're all a part of, is uniquely challenging, it's also a general calling to start shifting out of the conventional way that we look at employment as public sector employers. I'm confident that many in the audience right now are finding some new obstacles in way of getting your work done efficiently from working from home. It's worth noting that there are cloud-based technologies available these days, not just NEOGOV. It's going to allow you, the HR professional, to work from home as efficiently as you could in an office. All right, that would allow you to do things like administer your paperwork online, assign online trainings that relate to this new COVID protocols that I'm sure you're all going to be responding to, assign tasks like if you guys have a new personnel policy, which I'm sure you all are going to be revamping, and you need to assign that new personnel policy to be acknowledged by your workforce. All these tools lead up to you guys being able to administer your HR functions from satellite locations so you can keep the HR engine running effectively at your given agencies. So what you're looking at here on my screen, these are representations of every module in the NEOGOV HRIS suite. It's one fully integrated solution. So you can keep your entire employee lifecycle under one roof without having to sign out of this system to get into that system, download this and import that. It's all under one roof. And the data is going to be shared across all modules when it's under one roof, from recruitment, collecting and processing online applications, sharing your candidate lists, with your hiring managers, scheduling your interviews, scoring your candidates, making the hire all in one spot. Then once the hire is made, onboarding them through employee self-service, which they can do from the comfort of their own home with something like NEOGOV. So you can assign them a specific checklist based on the job you hired them for, getting all their forms completed online, watching those training and welcome videos, accessing important items like the employee handbook, etc. Then moving on to developing them throughout their employment tenure with you, performance management, getting your evaluations online, monitoring performance trends, administering your development plans as needed, and then along with the LMS working hand in glove, a learning management system, which NEOGOV offers, that'll allow you to track and manage all things development related. The LMS at NEOGOV comes with an online library of trainings. It's about 1,600 at the moment and counting. That comes complimentary. Whatever our library is missing, you guys can author or construct your own content. So if you have your own, COVID protocol videos that you want to upload into our system, you can do that and administer those automatically. It'll also track and manage who's got a certification that's about to expire, etc. And then going forward, past the onboarding development phases, just ongoing employment document management, your forms manager. With our eForms product, which I'm circling here, when you do come up with a newly revamped personnel policy that has new COVID protocols and whatnot, you don't have to worry about sending that out in a very complex fashion. All you have to do is upload the new personnel policy you want people to read through and sign an acknowledgement form on. Just click a button in our system, and our system will administer the task for you on the timeline you set with eForms. So with eForms, you come up with a new personnel policy, you click the button, our system sends all your workforce an automatic email. They get a link in the email, they'll download that new personnel policy, and then following up with that, the system will make them sign an acknowledgement form. All right, all of it happens automatically for you. And then to the right, here that I'm circling right now, you got your backbone HR items. With the HR component right here that I'm circling, we call that core HR. Core HR would be your central hub for all of your employee data, be your system of record for all of your employee management and all of your reporting as well. So we could do your ACA reporting for you at NEOGOV. Other basic HR reports and data you would like to have at your fingertips, sometimes it is harder to pull from a payroll or an FIS system. Things like new hires and terminations, promotions and transfers, updated employee counts. It's all there at your disposal because of our core HR solution being specific to HR and the data that you guys need access to. And then to round it all off, if you want to complete the whole set, we can do your payroll for you, online timekeeping, and FMLA tracking. Okay, so now taking our attention off of the NEOGOV plug I just made, shifting back to today's webinar focus on the hiring side of HR life. A couple of items in the present to just keep in mind, given the COVID crisis and what it's left us with. Interesting stat here. This article came out a couple of weeks ago. After surveying 34 economists, the Wall Street Journal reported that the worst case scenario as a result of the economic damage from this current medical scare, it's going to equate to around a loss of about 5 million jobs nationwide. That effectively is going to send unemployment from what it was at a couple months ago at 3.5% to north of 10%. So just to play the optimist here, with every crisis comes your opportunity. So when the sand settles from this pandemic, the public sector is going to be in a unique position to capitalize on a hungry job-seeking market, wanting to get back into the workforce. So this webinar will hopefully serve as just a healthy reminder to all of us in the audience today to tone up our collective hiring practices and ensure that we place ourselves in the best possible position to capitalize here. So this is a quote from the HR Technologist Online Journal. And that first sentence of this quote sets the tone of the thesis for a good recruitment process. So just to read this out loud, everybody can as well, follow along. Candidate experience is the perception of a job seeker about an employer based on the interaction during the complete recruitment process. This includes all the points of contact, the search, the process, the interview process, and onboarding. So just paying particularly close attention to the first clause of that first sentence. Your candidate's experience during your recruitment process is going to preview their entire employment tenure with your organization. Simply put, we are back to basics with another iteration of you don't get a second chance to make that first impression. And I'm personally in the camp of believing that even the onboarding process for your new hire, it begins during the recruitment process. Another effective way of looking at your candidate experience, I just want to plant this seed. As the employer, think about yourselves in the service industry specifically as like a restaurant owner, and think of your candidates as your customers. I think that's a pretty apt way of putting the way you want to recalibrate or look at your current processes when you're trying to retool them a bit. So as we go through some of these scenarios in the following slides, just experiment with looking at your recruitment processes through the lens of my candidates are my customers. It's an effective one to think about there, marinate on it. Okay, some stats from notable sources that support that previous statement here. Nearly 4 in 5 candidates say the overall experience they receive is an indicator of how a company values its people. 80 to 90% of talent say a positive or negative candidate experience can change their minds about a role or even a company. And then 72% of candidates share their experience with online sites like Glassdoor. And we're going to touch on all these stats here in a sec. Now the numbers all here on the screen, they follow a high percentage of total feedback when it comes to an overall candidate pool here. Another stat line that's not shown in this slide, and I think it encompasses everything from all the stats. This was done by a think tank based in LA called the Intelligence Group. 80% of Americans in the job market between the ages of 16 and 35, 80% between 16 and 35, value a culture and a people fit in their place of employment, more so than dollars and cents. Now, the survey question they asked to determine that is more interesting. Of that 80%, the people that answered this, that feedback there, they answered the question that they would rather make $40,000 a year for their whole career at a job that they love waking up and going to every morning than making over $100,000 at a job that they're indifferent or don't care about. All right, so there's the feedback from the Modern Employment Group, from a very interesting case study of about 10,000 people in the job market. They would rather make $40,000 a year their whole career at a job they love than more than $100,000 at a job that they don't really care about. So that said, if 80% of your modern candidates are valuing culture and people in a workplace more than money, and that top statistic on your screen right now serves as the bellwether for how candidates are looking at your agency, a solid candidate experience is imperative to ensure the successful influx of talent into your organizations. So, as public sector, if culture and meaningful work serving one's community is the staple of public sector's employment offering here, this evidence goes against our conventional thinking that the public sector is just perpetually behind the 8 ball when it comes to garnering top talent. All right. That said, we're always at that disadvantage against the public sector when it comes to resources, AKA money. So we've got to be more efficient when it comes to pumping up this message, when it comes to advertising our opportunities. We're going to tackle that during the webinar today. Now, as for addressing what's on the screen right here, the main challenges that we experience as the public sector that we must hurdle. First one we already discussed. It's expected we're going to see an overall spike in applicant submissions in the coming months after the sand settles from this COVID shenanigans. However, that hiring speed in which you actually hire is often going to be the deciding factor when it comes to landing the blue chip candidates that you really desire. So without throwing any more fancy stats at you, just think about very basically how many jobs any given candidate is applying to at the same time they apply to your organization. If you guys take a week too long getting your interview scheduled, the probability is very high that your top candidates, they're going to take another offer that's given. Often they take the first offer that's given to them. So the private sector has that luxury of hiring a bit faster than us. However, though there's often more steps involved in a public sector's hiring recruitment process, the speed and efficiency with your hiring is going to be key in beating competing employers to the punch. All right, so there's always ways that we can hire a little bit faster, and just hiring faster is going to solve a lot of the problems and bring in the talent that's at the top of your list. Then there's the expectations that we need to keep in mind, the expectations of our younger job seekers, our more modern employees these days. Just harkening back to the need of getting up to date with our hiring practices. A quick example, it's no secret job seekers these days, they expect a true online application, not a fillable PDF that they need to download and attach to an email along with a cover letter, then have to do all over again if they want to apply to you a second time. We're going to cover all that more specifically in the slides to come. A friendly reminder of your candidate's journey, just broken down step by step. These are touch points just worth a rhetorical examination. As we continue through the slide deck, start distilling the recruitment process more granularly. So how effective is your website? How easy is it for your candidates to find your job opportunities? How many clicks does it take to get to the center of that Tootsie Pop? And we'll show an example of that from a NEOGOV customer here in a bit. 2, how effective are your job postings? And where are you posting? Are you sure that Indeed.com is the most effective website to garner the most talent out there? The importance of communicating with your candidates in a more personalized manner. How many different avenues do you guys use to communicate with your candidates? Yes, there's always email and snail mail, but have you explored texting your candidate pools? Texting is new, and it's a hugely effective means of reaching your candidates on a personal level. And then you have your interview process. The importance of getting to that step as quickly as possible in your hiring process. Where are your bottlenecks before, during, after the interviews are complete that prevent you from pushing your offers out sooner? Now, what we're looking at here is the inverted pyramid that represents the recruitment process as a whole. Now, I'm confident many in the audience have seen some version of this before at a SHRM or an IPMA conference of some kind, so apologies if this one looks a bit old hat to some of the audience members. However, repetition being the seed of mastery here, this is what we're going to be breaking down step by step to explore where you can identify areas of improvement in your own hiring practices to ensure that solid candidate experience. And we'll start at the top of the pyramid with the attraction phase of recruitment. How do we get the right candidates to apply to us? So we'll talk about the image you're projecting, some of the best practices on making your postings more effective, and where to advertise. But first, we have our first polling question of the day. So without further ado, it's my understanding that you should see that first polling question pop up on the screen here. How recently have you updated your recruitment process and application? In the last 6 months? Last 6 to 12, last 1 to 2, don't know, or other. Go ahead and take 20, 30 seconds. Submit that poll question, and we will move on. Excellent. Should be enough time. And we'll examine those results here at the end. Okay, on to this inverted pyramid. Oh, and here are our polling results. Perfect. Perfect segue. So last 6 months, about 33%, 6 to 12. And we've got some higher counts as well within the last 1 to 2, and others that don't know. Okay, so something to keep in mind. Interesting feedback. Interesting feedback. Regular practice, just at least twice a month, just take a look at things, make sure that we're up to date. Now, starting at the top of our funnel here, when we tackle the beginning stage of the recruitment funnel, we're going to keep it simple and break it down into 1, the image or perception that your organization projects on your candidates, and 2, the job postings themselves, your content, your tone, etc. So when we distill the recruitment step of attracting the candidates, pay attention to the cultural profile that you're painting with your website. Remember, it's not about attracting the most candidates to a given job, but you want to attract the right candidates. Especially as public sector, we've got to be more targeted, more strategic with how we are actually targeting the ideal candidate pools, the right candidates for your organization specifically. So start thinking about the ideal candidates respective to your agency culturally. All right, some artistic criteria to think about, just when it comes to portraying your authentic organizational culture. All right, we're talking about on your website right now. What kind of lifestyle does your geography offer in your community? All right, for a very clear example would be if you're in the Mountain West. The great outdoors is an extreme strong suit in attracting the candidates that want that lifestyle outside of your workplace. So you should make sure that the first impression, your website, paints that picture for them. 2, what kinds of local traditions does your city, your county, your agency cherish? What do you guys regularly participate that you look forward to? Painting your community atmosphere that's specific on your website is going to automatically entice the candidates that want to be a part of the same community, those same traditions. I'm going to show you a really quick example of a NEOGOV customer. I don't think they'll mind because they've done a fantastic job of painting the mosaic of their particular agency culture. I'm going to go to the city of Wichita in Kansas. So Pam Pennington, if you are on this webinar, thank you. They're a loyal NEOGOV customer, but they also do a fabulous job on their website, which NEOGOV has no control over here, of just painting exactly what their community is all about and what they're going to be offering just from an imaging stance. So when you sign into the city of Wichita and their website, immediately on display, current events. A big update, community-specific, addressing the COVID protocols and any updates that are happening specific to Wichita. You don't just have to go on CNN. You can access any updates that we have specific to Wichita here. All right, so just creating a lifeline in terms of the immediate medical needs, servicing the community. And then as you scroll across here, you get to see a three-dimensional look at some of the traditions and some of the things that are specific to this particular city. The Miracle League, for example. Learn more about that here. Tradition you might want to be a part of. And then pumping up their civic duty, how much they care about the state of Kansas and their role in the state of Kansas. And then pressing upon the community how important it is to participate in things like the census count. A little update, little note here to the right on why that is important to participate in. And then having a lifeline, something that's very easy to get anything that they need addressed, reporting of problems, requesting services, getting the answers they need directly to their community right there. So big and bold on display, front and center, right when you sign in. You've got resources that are available to you as a member of the Wichita community. And then as I was talking about in the beginning, how easy is it to actually get to your jobs? How many clicks do you think it takes a candidate to get to your jobs? With Wichita here, right beneath that big intranet that they've got on display up top, they've got their top requests. Boom, 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 front and center is employment, making it very easy to access your employment opportunities. It's amazing how many people lose interest just because you're going to make them click too much. So I click on their employment bar right there. We get a blown up picture of a young Tom Selleck looking guy. And I'll view my available jobs right here, very easy to find, and we go straight to their career page where they can apply. And this is just an example of a NEOGOV career page that's mobile friendly. So applicants can even apply with a phone or a mobile device. Now there's other resources out there besides NEOGOV, but from the stance of what your website is being placed at, some important notes just to keep in mind in terms of just being effective and making life easy on your candidates. Now another means that Wichita does a very good job of utilizing is going to be social media. Another interesting stat, 86% of that same demographic I mentioned, 16 to 35, 86% of that particular demographic of the workforce utilizes social media when it comes to either applying to a job or researching employers. So with Wichita here, just adding another facet to their three-dimensional look at the community, with their website, they've got still shot photos, just capturing life in Wichita very effectively here, immediately on display, very easy to access. They have videos as well. Any pertinent updates from community leaders. I've even seen a little blurb here, like a day in the life of a police officer as well. Very, very effective and being targeted specific to just indulging your candidates and an employee experience at the city of Wichita right off the bat. All right, so just a couple of examples I wanted to show you. Tools that are out there, not just NEOGOV, that you guys can take advantage of right now to start pumping up the message and building that community and that cultural vibe that you want with your candidates. And let me go ahead and, there we go. That worked a lot better in rehearsal. Apologies there. Okay, just to conclude that point though, your website, your career page, your social media, you can create an effective filter that will land you your ideal applicants in any applicant pool. And every organization is going to be a little bit different, just based on if you're in a city or you're a rural community, big or small, what your geography is, et cetera. Okay, then we have the job postings themselves. The content and the length of your job descriptions is going to be a deciding factor in whether or not the candidate follows through with actually applying. And it even starts with your job title. So just take a moment to yourselves right now and have a think about how your class specs are even worded. Are your class specs labeled formally like accountant 2 or custodian number 2? Not to say that you need to make your titles misleading with $100 words, but is there a way of classifying these positions so it doesn't sound like something that could be ordered from a dollar menu? Now, on this slide here, you're going to see the juxtaposition between advertisements for the exact same job. The difference between these two class specs, it's a little bit exaggerated, but the point will still get made across. The difference between these two lies in the tone of the message. It's depicted by those highlighted words in each, on the left and on the right. The class spec on the left is written for the employer, not the candidate. The most effective job descriptions out there should be written to appeal to the job seeker's needs, not the needs of the job provider, the employer. It's the simple difference between using language that says, on the left, this is what we need, opposed to what is on the right. This is what we can give you. The language that's highlighted in blue reflects that tone. And then at the bottom of the classifier on the right, you get to those final sentences, and I underline the word you. Because with that one word, this job description becomes much more personal and much more conversational without losing that professionalism. Too often that pronoun, even with my customers, that pronoun is the ideal candidate or the ideal applicant. And every time I see that, even though I'm not even applying, I feel like I'm getting stiff-armed. You know, it's a subtle way of saying, well, don't get too excited. We're looking for the ideal candidate. It might not be you, but roll the dice. Let's see. All right, this voice, the one using you, it's speaking personally to the reader. So now the role of your job description becomes more of a calling to a real human instead of just a bulletin post. All right, one best practice to make into a habit. Read your critics' reviews. These reviews are going to help you determine where your candidate experience can be improved, and you have access to these reviews for free already, such as Glassdoor. And just to quantify how a review from a candidate experience can affect a business, I included the Yelp stat below. Statistically speaking, any business can expect to see a 5 to 9% increase in revenue on an annual basis per star received on Yelp here in the US. So an interesting one just to marinate on, especially when it comes to evaluating a candidate experience and what they might be reviewing. Okay. Now, once the attraction seed has been planted, when the candidate dives into the application process, you've got to start thinking about the visual of the application itself, all right, as well as the other logistics that go along with it. How long does it take to complete? Are we communicating with the applicant throughout the process upon their submission? So best practices that need constant revisiting, recommended twice a year at least, right? Does your application process take more than 20 minutes? I understand that some job applications, it's going to take a lengthy amount of time, depending on how much you need them writing down, how many questions you need them answering. However, generally speaking, does your application process take more than 20 minutes? The data suggests that the time frame of 20 minutes is the new barometer of candidate attention span. So if your application takes someone more than 20 minutes to complete, expect to see a steep drop of candidates following through the submission. The exact stat there comes from Career Builder, popular job board. They've got their own blog, and in their own research, 3 in 5 candidates, as of 2020, 3 in 5 are not going to finish an application that takes more than 20 minutes. Now that 20-minute benchmark bleeds into the second bullet point here. How user-friendly is your application process? These days, on something like LinkedIn, for example, you could just submit your LinkedIn profile and apply to 10 jobs in 20 minutes. So what are you asking of your applicants to actually submit to your job advertisement? With your current application, do I have to fill out a PDF, then download it, then attach it to an email, then write a cover letter in the body of an email, then do that process all over again if I want to apply again? Things to think about. So this is a quick example here of the NEOGOV online job description and application layout. The top left is the job description itself. I look at it as a candidate before applying. The visual on the right is the application profile I would submit to apply to that job. Now notice the job advertisement. The technology now exists to use visuals on the job advertisement itself. Just another little tidbit here, something that's a nice little button on the top of it all. Think about further stamping your job advertisements, placing a visual in the ad that accurately depicts your life on the job. Visuals are far more powerful in inspiring a candidate to say to themselves things like, I want to be that, I want to do that. And the more specific you can be to your community, your environment, the better. With NEOGOV as well as other vendors out there, once a candidate has filled out the application once, that application that I submitted is saved. So those candidates can use the same application profile to apply to additional jobs. They apply to you with you guys. They'll simply fill in the blanks of any additional questions that need answering for the other job they're applying to, any additional attachments they need to make, references they've got to place, et cetera. Overall, the online applications that are out there, it makes the candidate much more likely to apply again, simply because of how easy it is to reapply. They can use all their basics, fill in the blanks, click submit. Produces a lot of time. Another tip, another best practice. Remove any nice to have questions that aren't necessarily required upon first contact with candidates, and to limit the number of screens people have to navigate. All right, the idea is just to balance what's convenient for recruiters and what's user-friendly for applicants. You can always ask those questions in another forum. You can ask them during the interview process or at an additional step along the way. A lot of online application providers are going to allow you to ask additional questions that your applicants would have to just sign back in and resubmit depending on what stage of the process they're in. So you can break it up a little bit more, opposed to just throwing everything on there all at the beginning. And then there's the highlight of that 3 and 5 stat that I mentioned from Career Builder. 60% of job seekers report they have quit an application due to its length or complexity. All right, making our way down the funnel. We're halfway there. On to the selection portion. Important reminder, at the top to marinate on, anyone who has taken the time to complete your application process is naturally excited enough to see the rest of the process through. So now that you have that proverbial commitment from the candidate's end, the proverbial ball is in your court as HR professionals. So take the reins here. Communicate quickly and communicate often with your candidates. Sort out who's eligible and get those individuals into your interview process quickly so they know how serious you are at considering them as an addition to your organization. Speed is key. Speed kills. So some questions to wrestle with as you think about your respective selection processes. 1, are you sending out email notifications to inform the candidates that did not pass the initial cut of your selection process that it's time to move on? Have you thought about text messaging candidates? Keep them up to date on the next step in your recruitment process. Are you guys even able to fill in candidates on what the next step of the recruitment process is or where they're at in the process? There's technologies available like NEOGOV that allow you to text your candidate pool en masse. And with regard to that last bullet point there, do you have the effective means of keeping candidates informed? Is there an internet or a forum that they can access and check on what their particular status is? Here is an example, just to piggyback off that last point, in way of allowing your candidates the ability to see their application status. This is an online way for candidates to know that their application was accepted. This right here you're looking at on my screen, it's just a screenshot of NEOGOV's candidate self-service portal. Now, if NEOGOV is your provider, once your candidates have submitted an application, they can check their status in real time. In the same way that they applied to you, they'll have access to this. If the candidate gets moved on to the next step in the recruitment, that little message I've highlighted there, it's going to update. Now, with NEOGOV, as well as anything that your IT department could come up with or any other provider, you can customize the language on those status checks, which is just another opportunity to keep rubber stamping the cultural vibe that you want to put out for the candidate experience. So maybe it's something with charm, all right, without losing the professionalism. So instead of minimum qualifications review right here, you can toy with using some custom language like, we've received your application, we're taking a close look at you, so for the love of all things holy, please no phone calls. Winky face. Whatever you want. But whether it's NEOGOV, another provider, or your IT department developing something internally, tools like a candidate self-service portal or just a portal where your candidates can check on their application status, it's very effective in improving your communication on an ongoing basis with your applicant pools, as well as just cutting down on those candidate phone calls that'll interrupt your workday. And in way of bulk communicating, job seekers, they're looking for a personal touch. About 2 out of 3 applicants, they expect more personalized communication. So just as an example, when a candidate's been selected for an interview or even been rejected from a particular process, a solid best practice is to simply use their first name in the email. Now, that might be a little bit difficult if you're not using some kind of a technology that will actually give you like templates that will automatically put in those first names for you, but there's plenty of providers and tools out there, not just NEOGOV, that'll create email or text message templates that you can use your own custom language with, and it'll produce the candidate's name for you automatically here. And another best practice, just to button this point up, maintain communication. 29% of candidates withdrew from the process because the recruiting process just took too long. Just harkening back to bottlenecks. Where are they? What's preventing us from getting the word out to our candidates, whether we're selecting them or not? Then we arrive at the offer phase. Just a reminder to keep your candidates informed throughout the entire process through the offer. It just lets them know you care, whether they're being selected or not. Lets them know that you guys are being diligent on the communication front, keeping them up to date. And it gives them much more of a hand-holding effect. And just to highlight the previous point made, remember the people that you do not hire have just as much influence on your company's reputation as those who join your organization. Read those candidate reviews. Close the loop with all your candidates, not just the ones who get the job. As for myself, before I saw the light and began my employment at NEOGOV, I applied to my alma mater, UCLA, for a couple of administrative positions when I was just figuring out what I want to be when I grow up. I was notified by UCLA like 5 months later that I was not selected for a job. I had already begun another job, and essentially I was just given an email that hurt my feelings on a Tuesday 5 months later. So if you have the capacity, if you want to explore that capacity, keep the communication constant and current. It goes a long way. And now for our second poll question of the day. I'm sure it'll pop up on my screen soon. Bear with me. Here we go. Do you know how long your application takes? You ever done that little litmus test for yourselves? Up to 15? Up to a half hour? Beyond a half hour, up to a minute, or up to an hour? Longer than an hour, or don't even know? Take 30 seconds. Let's get some feedback. Let's see what the lay of the land is here. While you guys are filling it out, another interesting one, it's kind of tough to gauge this one because, of course, every applicant's going to be different, but there's a lot of numbers behind applicants wanting to know in advance, before they even apply, how long they can expect to take on an application. It's an interesting one to toy with. Is there a way of, like on your website, saying, okay, for the police officer position, you want to apply to it, you can expect this to take up to 25 minutes? And the results are in 16 to 30, so hopefully a little bit less than the 20-minute mark. However, an overwhelming majority taking the 16 to 30 minutes. So is there a way that we can shorten those up? If there's not, there's not. But there's always usually room for improvement, at least with a couple of particular jobs, especially ones that you most commonly recruit for. Interesting feedback there to keep in mind. Okay. Moving on, guys. We are zipping right through here, making excellent time. Another reminder, pick up where we left off pre-polling with question 2. I appreciate the message from the quote in blue, how a company treats job candidates, the ones hired and the ones rejected, broadcasts a clear message about its values. And the Human Capital Institute broadcasts a message about its values. Now, once a hire is made, the formal onboarding process begins, but as I'm sure many of you subscribe to in the audience right now, onboarding truly begins at the recruitment process. However, once somebody is hired, the formal onboarding begins. Now, new hire onboarding is often overlooked, like way too much, because for some of us, the hiring process, it's arduous enough. We figure the employee is thankful that they have a job, and we followed a responsible hiring protocol, keeping communication constant. Now that they're on our roster, why would our new hires leave so soon? However, the numbers don't lie. The first 90 days of the new hire experience makes or breaks whether or not they're going to stay with you. 30% of all new hires in the United States quit in the first 90 days because of a haphazard onboarding experience here or there. So keep in mind that a new hire accepted your offer, and they are employed by you, but they still have other offers coming from additional jobs they applied to that'll be presented to them in the meantime. Right, so establishing a steady love and attention throughout the benchmarking periods of 90, 180, and their first full year is going to galvanize their position that they made the right choice working for you. So I always encourage those to have a much more strategic and even longer onboarding process where you really see them through and make sure that plane takes off throughout the first 360 days of their employment with you guys. Simple stuff, but it'll go a long way in keeping the good people around. So just as a reminder, in way of best practices, comes to ensuring a solid onboarding process, provide some clarity around their job description. Remember, they're not just applying to you guys. Provide an overview of the organization. Here's where everything is. Where can I find stuff? suggested places for lunch, especially if it's an out-of-town hire. All right, get them familiar with the actual community outside of your organization, and recommend a mentor. A lot of numbers around that support. Having a mentor during the infancy stages of their employment with you is also going to ensure a very positive first impression from a new hire onboarding perspective. Recommending a mentor, either a colleague or somebody in HR that they can depend on and have communication with throughout their new hire onboarding time. This is an example of onboarding self-service from my demo environment that I use at NEOGOV. So this is an example of what online onboarding can look like. But just to reiterate, there are plenty of options out there, even within your own IT departments, to come up with your own onboarding self-service capacity. So however, to get the creativity flowing in the audience, I just want to show you this one. Just see how with the self-service environment here, your new hires can get an impression even before they walk in the door on day one about you guys. You can provide a reminder of their job description. You can provide important documents like the employee handbook, workplace safety guides, anything they're going to need continual access to. They can't lose it. They can always sign back into this portal as long as the internet exists. They can download a new copy. And by automating at least the beginning phases of your new hire onboarding experience, you can get a big head start on some of the basics while offering them further evidence that you are a 21st century employer of choice. You're with it, and you're setting up that employee for the immediate success and familiarity with your culture and their work environment. So by the time that they do walk in the door on day one, they're going to know what to expect. They're going to know where to go. They got a timeline for what their checklist is and what things are due. And you, as the HR and the ambassador to the new hire experience, you can make that onboarding experience more personal and more meaningful instead of spending hours on end doing that paperwork on day one, whatever it is you currently do. You can make that onboard experience a bit more personal, a bit more meaningful, more creative. And the benefits with onboarding there, they're not just esoteric from the quote-unquote experience of the new hire standpoint. This is just an example of a NEOGOV customer and what they pitched in their budget council in way of trying to get our automated onboard solution. This is a customer in South Dakota and what they determined after just a basic return on investment analysis. Simply put, they did a basic analysis on what they were the average time it was taking them to onboard somebody, so paying 2 salaries, get somebody up to speed while trying to replace somebody, opposed to automating that process, the amount of days that they're going to save. So just by determining that they're going to be saving duplicate shifts by about 1.5, it'll be reducing the annual double pay by that amount of money per year. And that's just per position. That's just for one position. So in terms of making the argument to your budget councils, it's very significant from a hard dollar standpoint as well. Okay. Last poll question of the day, guys. Hang in there. We've got a Q&A coming up. Poll question number 3. Do you alert all your candidates when you have made your decision, whether they're hired or not? Brick, yes or no? Do you alert all your candidates when you've made your decision, whether hired or not? And for the results. Yes and no. Okay, good, good, good. Excellent. So we've got an overwhelming majority that are keeping on top of the communication level. For those that are in the nose, we've got some best practices and tips from the webinar here. Just pump up that particular stat on your end. Good deal, guys. Thanks for participating there. Okay. So just to recap everything, now that we know the candidate journey, how can we improve it individually? Everybody's going to be different here, but what are the areas of focus that we know that we can improve on in way of communication, the process itself, and then the professionalism of the organization throughout the process? So with communication, how often are we communicating? All right, are we personalizing the communication throughout all your available channels, website, social media, texting, email? And are we following through with communication with all the candidates before you make your ultimate choice, whether they're being selected or not? With process, where are our inefficiencies, our bottlenecks? How can we make our hiring process faster so we can ensure the offer gets to our ideal candidate quickly? And then going forward, how do we continually improve that process? Do we have data available that lets us know how fast, what is our time to hire stat per department, per job description? And then with the professionalism, just challenging that status quo of being boring with your job titles, your advertisement language. You don't lose professionalism when you include creativity. Don't be afraid to paint the portrait of your culture and the community that you offer, because that is the public sector's strong suit, bar none. And a little quote, just to end the webinar here: the candidate experience never really ends. It becomes the employee experience. So thanks for joining. This is Q&A time. So I am going to go ahead and minimize a couple of screens on my side. And let's go ahead and take a look at some Q&A stuff.
This is Jacqueline at IPMAHR. This is just a reminder, you can submit your questions in the Q&A box. It looks like we do have a few questions to get started. Please stick around for the question and answer session at this time. Thank you, Alex, for your wonderful presentation.
Great. Thank you, Jacqueline. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions here that my colleague Nelson has forwarded me. And by the way, guys, if I can't get to everything now, I'm going to take a look at everything, and I'll go ahead and find your contact information, and I'll go ahead and get you the answer via email if I can't address it right now with the last 10, 15 minutes that we have here. So let's see, how have some of your customers, one question here, how have some of your customers leveraged NEOGOV products during the COVID-19 crisis? Okay, to answer whoever brought up that question, how do NEOGOV customers leverage our products during COVID-19? There were a couple of particular products that I mentioned in the beginning, and I'll try to fly back to my slide here if I can. But with e-forms in particular, so document management, getting your forms online, whatever the new COVID protocols are, whatever you need to get signed off on by your employees, that is probably the hot ticket item that our customers want to take advantage of, along with our LMS, our training module, administering training protocols for COVID and coming back to work, or protocols that need to be initiated and taken care of from the comfort of their own home. So online forms with our eForms product, and learning management for our online trainings. Those are the two big ticket items right now with the NEOGOV customers. We're actually offering those for free for a temporary time. So I think you guys will all be getting an email from the NEOGOV marketing team, but if not, you got my contact information right there. If you want some more additional information on just doing a free trial of some NEOGOV items to get your forms online, administer those so they can get signed off on and filled out, or for online trainings, feel free to give me a ping. I'll make sure you get all the info that you need. All right. Another question here. You guys could talk about, let's see here. Do you encourage recruiters to let candidates know that they are not being considered at the time it is determined? Let's see here. Yes, I mean, yeah, I definitely do. Let's see here. Just a way of letting them know it's time to move on. And they might be interested in a separate job, simply put. So if they're really hanging on to the hope that they're going to get job number one, but they'd be totally cool with applying to a second and third job with you guys, it's going to let them know it's time to move on, as well as it's just going to serve both parties most effectively. I got one from Sidonia Fulton here. Do you recommend posting the full hiring range for the position, as well as the classification range? Or is that confusing or misleading to the candidates? Simple is better, Sidonia. Simpler is better. So whatever is going to paint that picture the best for you. It'll always be different. However, simple is always the most correct solution when it comes to appealing to the candidate. Let them know what they need to know. What does it pay? And this is what we can offer you. You discussed, let's see here, anonymous attendee. You discussed designing for the under 35 applicant base. Is this the same type of formatting of messages effective for the over 35 applicant base? Designing under 35 applicant base. I kind of read that one just randomly there. I need some clarification on that one from the 35 applicant base. So go ahead, if you are out there and you're listening to this, designing for the under 35 applicant base, the same type of formatting and messaging effective for the over 35 applicant base. Go ahead and write me an email with that one. I'd love to get you an answer on that because that's an interesting specific one. Okay, let's see here. Scrolling on down. Michael Schroeder, or Michelle, I'm sorry. Michelle Schroeder. How many times would you put an applicant through interviews? Example, we have applicants that apply for the same position multiple times. They have been interviewed a few times, ultimately not selected. Do you think this is fair to the applicant? I mean, this is an opinionated question. I think that there's plenty of examples of somebody that's not a good fit for one position and yet a beautiful fit for another position, even though they might have interviewed with you a couple of times. I can speak to NEOGOV anyway. We have tools that'll allow you to mine your applicant pools. So for example, we have a thing called talent search. Let's just go ahead and say, Michelle, that I applied to you 3 different times. I made it to the interview phase and I wasn't selected for any of those positions. In the future, if you discover a position that maybe I am ideal for, it's perfect, you could simply go into the applicant database and type in basic search criteria, like any notes you made about me during the interview process, any sort of highlights on my resume. You can just put in search criteria. Our system's going to pull up a list of all of your applicants in a rank and file order based on the search criteria you're looking for from previous applicants applied to you. So to answer your question, generally, is it fair? I mean, I guess technically, no and yes. It's not fair because nobody likes getting rejected that many times after getting so close. But at the same time, I think expressing continual interest in them, it's going to keep them coming back for more. Felicia Shelburne. What would you recommend now if the company had an offer out to a candidate? What would you recommend now if the company had an offer out to a candidate? I guess I need more details behind what would the subject matter behind what I'm recommending. So Felicia, go ahead and shoot me an email if you want. Michael McDonald, is there a way to embed videos into the job posting with NEOGOV versus a hyperlink to our YouTube? Embedding videos, not yet, but it is a big ticket item on our roadmap. Right now, we can only embed the videos via like a hyperlink. But at the same time, I still think it's very effective. If you say, click here to see like a day in the life of, it's one click, it's going to show them the same thing. It's not too much extra effort, and it's still not, I think it's a very effective choice. Vanessa Carter here. How long is too long to notify a candidate that they have not been selected? How long is too long to notify a candidate not been selected? Some of the law enforcement processes is lengthy. It takes a while to make a decision. So yeah, there's always going to be those particulars when it comes to law enforcement, especially anything civil service that has all those selection hurdles involved in making your choice. How long is too long to notify? In terms of a particular timeline, I have no stats that would indicate what is too long. However, what you can be more diligent and I guess express some fidelity towards is just keeping constant communication for those lengthy processes. So if you know it's going to be up to 3 weeks before those candidates are going to get any notices, with a tool like NEOGOV or something that's in place for you, just to send email updates or text message updates, something as simple as, we haven't forgot about you. We're just taking our time, making sure we're doing the vetting process correctly. Stay tuned. It shouldn't be longer than X amount of time. So you can give them sort of a general time frame that will kind of give them the scope of what they can expect in terms of hearing back from you. That's usually going to be enough to keep them sleeping okay at night. So just be diligent on keeping the reminders up. Jason Norris, I have a question regarding Glassdoor. Is there a free version of Glassdoor? Is there any way to automatically post NEOGOV postings on Glassdoor? Is that a free service or a premium service with a fee? So Jason, with regard to that, we do have job boosting capabilities. So like per position, if you know that you got a very difficult to recruit for position and you want to post that job all over the internet to expand your presence, you can do that in an ad hoc fashion, but it will come with an additional fee. So NEOGOV will give you the ability to repost to something like Glassdoor, but you'd have to have the relationship established with Glassdoor to actually pay. Let's see here. What would you recommend now if a company has an offer out to a candidate as it relates to COVID-19 and work from home? This one comes from Seada Irons. What would you recommend now if a company has an offer out to candidates as it relates to COVID-19 and work from home. With regard to the COVID, I think that there you kind of, it almost gets answered within the question. Like, it's no secret what kind of a strain this particular issue puts on any candidates that are, especially ones that are getting squeezed for work right now, that have been currently laid off. So I think just establishing the expectations of what it's going to mean to work for you guys and work from home, and then establishing all the resources that are going to be available to them. So here's where, like, NEOGOV has a strong suit, or any sort of vendor that offers you cloud-based solutions is a strong suit. You could start saying things like, though the beginning of your employment is going to be primarily from home, here are all the resources you're going to have in place, so you're not going to feel so isolated. So with NEOGOV, for example, you have that mentoring program where you're going to have something that gives you an instant chat line to whoever you need to contact throughout the course of the workday. Just letting them know that they're not going to be alone, even though from a satellite location, it might appear isolating from the outset. Just being very, very transparent with all the tools that you're going to have to offer them as it relates to the COVID-19 situation before they can come into the office again. That would be the most effective way to let anybody know that you've made an offer, what to expect. Kelsey Wood here. Would you recommend closing the loop with candidates after we have an accepted verbal offer, or after all pre-hire requirements are met and the hire is official? I personally, Kelsey, am not. I think keeping them up to date as you go is, I guess it's the most polite way of doing it and the most effective way of doing it. It's just going to save you a lot less work fielding those phone calls or constant touch points from communication on their end. So hopefully I'm answering this question correctly. For example, if you go through the min-qual screening and you've got 15 people that apply to you, 13 of them are not qualified. You're only going to keep 2. Just write those 13 people an email, just one that's, hopefully you can personalize it. There's tools out there that can help you do that. But just letting those people know it's time to move on immediately, and then carrying on with your recruitment process. It's just going to keep things sewn up as you go. That's the most effective way of doing it in my experience. Okay, and we've got about time for one more here. Let's see here. Anonymous attendee. How does one overcome the challenge of working for an organization that is not open to change and innovation when it comes to updating the recruitment process? Whoever submitted this, I can send you some material that the evidence will lie in visuals and data. NEOGOV's done a pretty phenomenal job. We've been around for about 20 years when it comes to public sector specific recruitments. So I've got some interesting stuff that I can send you. You can also access on the NEOGOV website. Just go to neogov.com and look up resource library. We've done some interesting case studies on, like, the current state of the job market and how it's not necessarily an if question anymore. It's more of a when. The public sector is going to adapt to more modern hiring and HR tools. But I think to answer the question very simply, how does one overcome the challenge of working? You've got 2 hurdles. One is automation going to take away jobs? And the answer is no. That is a common misconception. Automation does not take away jobs. It enhances jobs. It makes life easier so those that are in your job can do it more effectively. It is not replacing humans on the HR technology side, all right? So one, you've got to overcome that challenge right there. If they're not open to change and innovation, you got to establish the argument, 1, we're not taking away jobs. 2, you are inherently going to be saving money. You're saving money because you're saving time. And that's usually the hardest hurdle to leap, because a lot of people want to see hard dollar cost savings. It's hard to demonstrate if you've got some stubborn people on the council or some people that are the naysayers on the executive side. However, if you were interested in exploring NEOGOV, for example, I can give you some interesting stats that'll help make the argument. Or if you guys are evaluating other vendors and you're worried that, you know, there's no point in me trying to submit this for budget approval because it's always going to get a no, the reps, if they're any good for whatever vendor you're evaluating, they should have all the resources that you need to help establish the argument and present it effectively for approval. So it'll really be a case study on how effective the reps are that you're working with for whatever vendor you're targeting.
All right.
Okay.
Well, This is Jacqueline at IPMA HR, and Alex, on behalf of IPMA HR, thank you so much for presenting today, and thank you to NEOGOV for sponsoring today's presentation. This is a final reminder that the slides and the presentation will be available by the end of this week. And in our webinar library, I've provided the link to that in the chat box, as well as the link to our survey. So we definitely would appreciate your feedback at this time. You can click on that link to get to our webinar survey. And again, thank you, Alex. And this will conclude today's presentation. On behalf of IPMA HR, I wish that you all stay safe and healthy in this time. Any closing remarks,
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Alex?
No, just thank you all for joining. And yeah, agreed with Jacqueline. Stay safe, guys.
All right, take care, everyone.